Welcome back to Transcriber from Reddit. Today's topic was inspired by the subreddit Raised by Narcissists. It was posted over 8 years ago and the user has now been removed. It shows as deleted. The post is a text post titled A Narcissist's Prayer. It has the flare rant/vent. And the body of the post reads, "Hey guys, found an elegant poem about Nepologies. I thought it was a great summary of how it goes. A narcissist's prayer. That didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it." This was, I found out, the same narcissist prayer that was created by Dana Craig. I did some digging in preparation for this video. As of recording this video, this is the most that I found on the original author of The Narcissist Prayer. Here is her Twitter profile, and I will also link in the description below if you want to reach out to her. Whenever you're dealing with or trying to heal from a narcissist's influence, it is important that we be there for one another. So by all means, reach out to her, keep it respectful, but reach out. Whether to her or to either of the resources that I will be covering. As I'm sure you can imagine, there is numerous posts and websites that have this poem as a central focus. There are two that I'm going to cover for you today. Two of which I think do a really decent job of explaining the narcissist poem. I say poem. I know it's called the Narcissist Prayer. There's also a decent amount of material that reference it as both prayer or poem. So I will do my best in this video to describe it by its original title, The Narcissist Prayer. The first link that I'm going to read is from Dr. Supriya McKenna. Her website, thelifedoctor.org. Underneath the header, it reads, "Narcissistic Personality Disorder Expert. #1 best-selling author, narcissistic separation and divorce specialist." As I said before, this is the first website out of the two that I'm going to feature in this video as I transcribe and do my 2 cents worth of thoughts at the end of coverage for each of these websites, as they both focus on the Narcissist's Prayer. Let's begin. The Narcissist's Prayer, written by Supriya McKenna. Here she features the Narcissist's Prayer centered in the center of the page. That didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. The Narcissist's Prayer, parentheses, by Dana Craig, end parentheses, beautifully illustrates the inner workings of the narcissistic mind. Denial, gaslighting, minimizing poor behavior, blame shifting, and shame dumping all feature in this one simple verse, all hallmarks of covert emotional abuse. To a narcissist, the, quote, truth, end quote, is not seen as a finite, fixed entity, but as being malleable, as being whatever the narcissist says it is at the time they say it. The truth is simply whatever serves the narcissist at that particular time. Let's take a closer look. Quote, that didn't happen, end quote. Here we have denial mixed in with history rewriting. Both classic narcissistic behaviors. If you've been in a narcissistic relationship, you will recognize this instantly. Narcissists need to feel good about themselves. This is an essential part of the personality disorder. They have a desperate need to feel special or perfect in order to distract themselves from their core wound, which is an underlying feeling of worthlessness. They can't accept the blame for bad behavior, as it would challenge this image that they need to project to the world, so they simply deny it. Quote, and if it did, it wasn't that bad, end quote. Minimization is another tactic that is hardwired into the miswired narcissistic brain as a result of how they reacted to their upbringing. Here they diminish the topic concerned to make it seem unimportant. And to a narcissist, if it doesn't serve them, it is unimportant. Narcissists will minimize all manner of things, from their own bad behavior to another's achievements, to an ill person's symptoms, to someone else's problems. Narcissists are intrinsically controlling. They have to control their image and how others see them, and they have to control others in order to escape from the reality of their own fragile egos. Here they are trying to control how others see external situations. Quote, and if it was, that's not a big deal, end quote. Of course, this is also minimization again, but here I want to mention the idea of, quote, gaslighting, end quote. Gaslighting is a specific narcissistic behavior in which the narcissist denies another person's reality by making them think that they are perceiving something incorrectly. Quote, you are thinking about it all wrong, end quote, is a common narcissistic refrain in one form or another. If this happens enough times, eventually the victim stops trusting themselves and starts to rely upon the narcissist in their lives as the, quote, voice of reason, end quote, or as the barometer of what is good or right. I knew of a narcissist whose gaslighting was so severe that he would tell his wife that he was drinking tea when actually he was drinking coffee, which she had watched him make. Although she knew somewhere in her heart of hearts that this wasn't right, she found herself questioning everything she thought she knew. This keeps the victim exactly where the narcissist wants them to be, trapped in their metaphorical cage where they can be manipulated and used to give attention, adoration, drama, or conflict to the narcissist whenever they need it. The oxygen that keeps the narcissist feeling whole and alive. Quote, and if it is, that's not my fault, end quote. Another easily recognizable narcissistic behavior to anyone who has been in a narcissistic relationship. Here we are looking at the phenomenon of, quote, blame shifting, end quote. Narcissists cannot take the blame for anything at all, again, because in doing so, they have to admit to themselves that they are not perfect and special, as they have to be in their own minds. Even just letting in the tiniest bit of accountability through the smallest chink in their armor of superiority will cause the entire false persona that they project to the outside world to come crashing down. Here it's misspelled, it says own, I believe she meant down. Leaving them exposed, ashamed, and vulnerable. All narcissists play the victim when they need to. Nothing can ever be their fault. It is always someone or something else's fault, and they are just the helpless and hapless victim of circumstance. Quote, And if it was, I didn't mean it, end quote. Again, accountability issues come to the fore here. Narcissists do not apologize and mean it, not ever. An apology will only come if it benefits them in some way. Apologies are transactional, as everything is to a narcissist. Narcissists cannot be seen to be the bad guy, and they cannot bear shame. That feeling of burning shame, the humiliation of it that healthy people learn to take on, unpleasant though it is simply not something a narcissist can allow themselves to feel. To them, shame believe she means feels, like an existential crisis. It must be batted off at all times, usually onto another. Quote, and if I did, you deserved it, unquote. Here we have both projection and blame shifting. This transferring of your feelings onto another person so that you do not have to feel them yourself is called, quote, projection, end quote. And narcissists are masters of it. If a narcissist incorrectly accuses you of feeling something or doing something or being a certain way, it is likely that they are projecting onto you. And it is they who are actually feeling that feeling, doing that action, or being that way. In this line of the verse, the narcissist is projecting their shame onto you. They are blaming you for what they did, so they do not have to bear the shame. And their shining false external image can remain intact and whole. The narcissist often uses illogical arguments to persuade you that something is your fault, or that you have got it all wrong, but delivered with such convincing fanfare that you find yourself fooled. They will often change the direction of their arguments so quickly that you are left utterly confused. The incidence of narcissism is said to be on the increase, and cultural narcissism is embedded in society. Those with a high prevalence of narcissistic traits flourish in today's climate, where prosperity, success, grandiosity, and entitlement are largely seen as positive attributes. Consider the world of politics, which is rife with narcissism, and consider the far-reaching implications of this. Sadly, the profound negative effects on society and those at an individual level can be stigmatized and are often swept under the carpet. Here, the original author accidentally put 2 ats in there, and I only read 1. I continue reading. Figures vary, with some studies indicating that up to 6% of the population qualify for the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, parentheses, NPD, end parentheses. The chances are that even if you do not directly know a narcissist, you know someone who does and who, most likely, has suffered to some degree at a narcissist's hands. NPD is known to occur as a result of environmental factors. In other words, narcissists breed narcissists due to the way they bring up their children, and the abused become the abusers. I believe it falls upon all of us to break these generational chains by raising awareness of narcissistic abuse and destigmatizing the experiences of those who have been affected by it. The unique challenges to healing faced by those who have been through the trauma of narcissistic abuse needs to be understood by as many people as possible, as does the fact that mere time, on its own, does not heal these wounds. Here ends the first article. Personally, I liked that Supriya went into terms for each strain of the original prayer, and that she went and defined and broke it down and also provided a couple examples. I also like the call to action that she wrote in her last paragraph. Time alone will not heal this. And unfortunately, if you are the victim of a narcissist, gray rocking or cutting them out of your life completely might be your only options until, if ever, they decide that they need to go in and see a therapist and get treatment. Moving on to the second. Here in the second site called narcissisinsight.com, and author Fizza Safe discuss the narcissist prayer in an article titled Secrets of the Narcissist Prayer. Discover the shocking truth behind each line. This post was originally written on March 9th, 2024. Do you know why Dana Craig wrote the Narcissist Prayer? Well, she simplifies the complexity of narcissistic personality disorder. This poem reflects the, in bold, characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder, end bold. The narcissist prayer verses may help you in understanding how, in bold, people with narcissistic traits think and act, end bold. Below that is a gray box that has all bold text that says, the narcissist prayer poem represent the progression of tactics commonly used by narcissists to avoid taking responsibility for their actions and manipulate others. That didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. Next to the prayer text is a big black arrow that points to, at the bottom of the box, the website www.narcissisinsight.com, in bold. End bold, moving on. It talks about how they, in bold, avoid taking responsibility for their actions and try to control others. The words try to control others is in bold. By understanding this prayer, we can see how narcissism works, why people behave this way, and what defense mechanisms they use. Let's look closely at each part of the poem to understand what it's saying. Below that is a table of contents in bold, understanding the narcissist's prayer, a psychological breakdown, defense mechanisms of narcissistic personality disorder reflected in narcissist prayers, subpoints denial and gaslighting, minimization, blame shifting, false apologies, victim blaming. Going back to regular bullet points, therapeutic applications of the narcissist prayer, concluding narcissist prayer, and frequently asked questions, of which there are 3 of them. First question, can the narcissist prayer be used to diagnose narcissism? Second question, what is the meaning behind the narcissist prayer poem? Third question, what are some common themes in the narcissist prayer poem? First section, understanding the narcissist prayer, a psychological breakdown. The narcissist prayer poem explains the inner workings of the narcissistic mind and the attitudes or behaviors commonly associated with narcissistic personality disorder, parentheses, NPD, end parentheses, linked here. It illustrates the, in bold, core features of NPD, end bold, such as begin bold, lack of accountability, manipulation, and an inflated sense of self-importance, end bold. Below that is a gray box where it has 2 columns of text, and the first column has a big black arrow that leads over to the second column. The first column reads, the narcissist's prayer reflects several defense mechanisms commonly associated with narcissistic behavior. The second column reads, denial, minimization, blame shifting, non-apologies, victim blaming. In bold, the narcissist prayer reads, end bold. The narcissist prayer consists of 6 lines, each representing a different tactic used by narcissists to manipulate and evade responsibility along with the psychological defense mechanism they use. In bold, the prayer reads, end bold. That didn't happen. dash denial. And if it did, it wasn't that bad, dash minimization. And if it was, that's not a big deal, dash blame shifting. And if it is, that's not my fault, dash gaslighting. And if it was, I didn't mean it, dash sadism. And if I did, you deserved it, dash projection and blame shifting. In Gray, Narcissist Prayer by Dana Craig. And Gray. Every part of the poem shows how people with narcissistic tendencies try to protect themselves from feeling bad about themselves and avoid admitting they've done something wrong. By understanding the themes present in the poem, we understand more about narcissistic personality disorder and how it affects relationships between people. This poem explains how people with narcissistic traits use different ways to control others. Let me explain those ways to you. Second section. Defense mechanisms of narcissistic personality disorder reflected in narcissist prayers. Denial and gaslighting. When narcissists say, quote, in bold, that didn't happen, and quote, and bold, they're pretending that something didn't occur even though it did. This is called denial. They do this to avoid feeling bad about what they did and to avoid getting in trouble. It's like they're trying to rewrite history to make themselves look better. This behavior can make the other person doubt their memory or perception of what happened, which is called gaslighting, linked here. Minimization. When denial doesn't work, narcissists might say, in quote, in bold, and if it did, it wasn't that bad, end quote, and bold, which means they're trying to make their actions seem less serious. They do this to make the person they hurt feel like their feelings aren't important. It's like they're saying, quote, even if I did it, it wasn't a big deal, so you shouldn't be upset, end quote. This makes it harder for the person they hurt to express their feelings and makes them doubt if their feelings are valid. Blame shifting. When a narcissist says, quote, in bold, and if it is, that's not my fault, end quote, and bold, they're shifting the blame onto someone else. They're good at making it seem like the other person is the one who's really at fault, not them. This helps them avoid taking responsibility for what happened. It's like they're saying, quote, even if something went wrong, it's not my fault, it's yours, end quote. This can make the person they're blaming feel confused and guilty, even though they didn't do anything wrong. This may interest you. 5 Hidden Truths Disclosing Narcissist Triangulation Jealousy, linked here. False apologies. When a narcissist says, quote, in bold, and if it was, I didn't mean it, end quote, and bold, they're not apologizing. They're just saying sorry to get something they want, like to be liked or to control the situation. They're not admitting they did something wrong or trying to make things better. It's like they're saying, quote, even if I did it, I didn't mean to hurt you, end quote. But it doesn't fix anything. Victim blaming. When a narcissist says, quote, in bold, and if I did, you deserved it, end quote, and bold, they're blaming the person they hurt for what happened. They're saying that the person somehow caused or deserved the bad treatment they received. This is hurtful and can make the victim feel like they're not worthy or like it's their fault they were hurt, which isn't true. It's a way for the narcissist to avoid taking responsibility for their actions and make the victim feel even worse. Third section. Therapeutic applications of the narcissist prayer. In therapy, the narcissist prayer can be a valuable tool for both clinicians and clients. For individuals recovering from narcissistic abuse, this poem can help in recognizing and naming the tactics used by their abusers, fostering understanding and healing. Therapists might use the prayer to, for those who have experienced narcissistic trauma, linked here, bold, recognizing these patterns is crucial for healing, and bold. It's important to understand that the behaviors outlined in the narcissist prayer are defense mechanisms and not reflections of the victim's worth or actions. Therapy, particularly with a therapist experienced in personality disorders, can provide valuable support and guidance. In bold, cognitive behavioral therapy, parentheses, CBT, and parentheses, and that was all in bold, and dialectical behavior therapy, parentheses, DBT, and parentheses, also in bold, are often effective in helping individuals manage narcissistic tendencies. You need to, in bold, build empathy, and bold, for others, and this can be done by understanding what they are feeling. This can help improve relationships and reduce conflict. Start working on, in bold, recognizing your behaviors and thought patterns, in bold. Reflect on how your actions impact others and consider the motivations behind your behavior. You have to learn to, in bold, build healthy boundaries, and bold, in relationships and respect the boundaries of others. This can help prevent manipulation and improve communication. Last but not least, surround, in bold, yourself with supportive friends, and bold, and family members who can provide encouragement and perspective. Read also Narcissistic Collapse, Signs, Causes, and Recovery Tips, linked here. Fourth section, Concluding Narcissist Prayer. The Narcissist Prayer by Dana Craig helps us see how narcissists manipulate and hurt others. By understanding their tricks to control and avoid taking blame, we can start to break away from their harmful cycle and begin to heal and feel stronger. Below are the frequently asked questions. I will link this website along with the other sources in this video so that you can take a look at them. Please remember that if you believe that you or a family member or a friend or a loved one are suffering from narcissistic abuse, please go find a therapist. Please shop around for a therapist. I am not therapy. I am not giving therapy-related advice. I am just reading this because it was a topic I found on Reddit, and I think this is something that needs more attention drawn to it. In comparison to the other site, I think this author also did a good job of looking at the other side, or the narcissist side, of what the prayer exemplifies, of what a narcissist exemplifies. In general, I think that this site is well worth a read over by you personally, as is the first site that I read here. Please also do your own research as you work to recover. Remember that church leaders also can be narcissistic. So even if it's not related to you, even if there is no direct blood tie, it could be someone that you work with or someone that you interact with. And that gets higher when you volunteer for or work within a church setting. Be aware of who you work with and their personality and their tendencies, and do your best to not get entangled in whatever machinations they might want to drag you into. Thank you for watching/listening, and I will see you in the next one.